In a world gripped by plague, war, and divine absolutism, the year is 1347. As the Black Death begins to creep across Europe and kingdoms rise and fall in feudal bloodshed, a blinding light splits the skies above the forests of central France. Peasants drop their tools, priests fall to their knees, and horses rear in terror as an object, neither celestial nor crafted by man, descends from the heavens with a hum that drowns even thunder. Earth, for the first time in recorded history, is no longer alone. This is not merely a visitation. It is contact. The craft lands in the densely wooded region near the Abbey of Cluny, one of the most influential monastic centers in medieval Christendom. The monks, initially believing it to be an angelic miracle or divine wrath, approach with incense, crosses, and Latin prayers. What they witness instead defies all sacred texts. Beings of radiant form, enveloped in shimmering suits, descend from the vessel, beings neither man nor beast. The aliens, later referred to by scribes as Lux Dei, light of God, do not speak. They communicate through symbols, light projections, and sound frequencies that drive some to madness and others to a state of euphoric awe. The monks record the event obsessively. Word spreads like wildfire across Europe, carried by pilgrim, merchant, and soldier. The Pope is informed. Kings send emissaries. The Ottoman sultans, Mongol khans, and Byzantine emperors all dispatch spies and holy men to investigate. Medieval Europe, fractured by war and disease, now faces a new existential question: what place does God have if these beings are real? By 1350, the plague ravages Europe with even greater ferocity, but rumors spread that the Lux Dei offer healing beams of light, capable of curing illness and mending wounds. Whether out of pity or experimentation, they heal small groups of people, mostly monks and children. These miraculous acts only deepen the religious chaos. Some see them as angels, sent to cleanse the earth. Others claim they are demons, here to seduce mankind away from the church. Heretical cults emerge, worshipping the visitors and rejecting Christian dogma. The Lux Dei do not speak, intervene, or clarify. They remain distant observers, occasionally providing glimpses of advanced technology, floating tablets that show images of stars, maps of planets, and glowing glyphs incomprehensible to even the most educated clergy. The Catholic Church is thrown into crisis. The Pope declares the beings part of a divine test, insisting faith must endure. But schisms form rapidly. Some bishops embrace the visitors as part of God's plan, others declare them the heralds of the apocalypse. In 1352, at the Council of Avignon, a heated debate erupts over whether the aliens possess souls, and whether they need baptism. Theological madness ensues. In the Islamic world, scholars like Ibn Khaldun and astronomers in the observatories of Samarkand approach the event scientifically. Some propose that the Lux Dei are the jinn of the stars described in ancient texts. They attempt to communicate through mathematics and geometry, believing that logic might transcend language. In China, the Yuan court becomes divided. Some advisors see opportunity for trade, while Confucian scholars warn of cultural collapse. The Lux Dei remain, but their actions are minimal. Their craft becomes a site of pilgrimage, surrounded by tents of the sick, the curious, and the fanatical. Doomsday cults spring up across Europe. Some nobles try to capture the beings. Others offer them fealty. The balance of power begins to tip. Technological fragments left behind, deliberately or accidentally, are taken by the most ambitious minds of the age. Alchemists in Prague and Florence begin to study metal unlike any found on Earth. Devices that project moving light become objects of obsession. The seeds of a premature renaissance begin to grow, not of classical knowledge reborn, but of alien mimicry. By 1360, wars have shifted. Knights in armor now march under banners of the Lux Dei, claiming divine right through proximity to alien miracles. Early prototypes of crude light machines, inspired by stolen alien tech, begin to appear on battlefields, though barely understood and often dangerous to use. But the greatest impact is philosophical. Human exceptionalism shatters. If these beings exist, and appear uninterested in dominion or salvation, then what is man's place in the cosmos? The question fractures faith itself. As Europe burns in religious and political upheaval, a secret council forms. Scientists, theologians, and rulers, Christian, Muslim, Mongol, and Chinese, gather to decide a new course for humanity. For the first time in recorded history, a global dialogue begins, not through conquest, but through necessity. The aliens, by their silence, have forced mankind to look beyond dogma and toward the stars. The year is 1362. Earth stands at the dawn of an unearned enlightenment. But enlightenment without understanding can be a curse. Because the Lux Dei have begun to leave. And the real question arises, not why they came, but what they were watching for. As the alien presence became increasingly visible in the skies over Europe, the first recorded reaction was not one of curiosity, but sheer terror. From peasants in the fields to kings in their castles, the lights in the heavens were interpreted as celestial portents, omens of divine judgment or demonic invasion. Chroniclers in monastic scriptoriums penned frantic accounts of glowing discs, wingless flying chariots, and beams of light descending upon forests and mountains. These sightings were catalogued alongside eclipses and famines as signs of the end times. In the year 1272, the burning wheel over Prague, a widely observed phenomenon, was described by both religious scholars and traveling merchants. The event catalyzed panic across the Holy Roman Empire. Bishop Anselm of Bohemia declared it a heavenly punishment for the arrogance of man, while others feared it heralded the return of the Antichrist. Amid this religious anxiety, the alien emissaries made their first tentative contact. Hovering over isolated villages, they employed projections of human-like figures, holographic apparitions that communicated through symbolic gestures and bursts of radiant light. Unfortunately, the peasants who witnessed these encounters either fled in terror or were accused of witchcraft and heresy. The papacy reacted with swift condemnation. In 1274, Pope Gregory X convened a special council in Lyon to address what was termed the celestial heresy. The Church decreed that any unnatural lights or flying apparitions were manifestations of the devil and excommunicated anyone who attempted communication with them. Inquisitors were dispatched across Christendom to root out alleged collaborators, sparking a new wave of brutal witch trials, not for heresy, but for alien communion. But not all rejected the phenomenon. A minority of scholars and mystics, especially in Islamic Spain and the Byzantine Empire, proposed alternative explanations. The renowned polymath Ibn al-Zarawi, studying reports from Granada, posited that these beings were intelligences beyond the sphere of fixed stars. He believed they might be the jinn referenced in the Quran, or perhaps other sentient creations of God. His writings spread among Arab astronomers and eventually reached European natural philosophers via translations in Sicily. Meanwhile, across the Mongol Empire, news of the sky serpents reached Kublai Khan. Unlike the West, the Mongol reaction was one of cautious curiosity. Already steeped in shamanic traditions and sky worship, Mongol leaders viewed the phenomena as potential messengers from Tungri, the sky god. Khan dispatched riders to trace the sightings across Central Asia. In 1275, in the deserts of Gansu, one such caravan made contact. According to the Blue Annals of Khotan, the beings spoke through vibration and symbols, offering a globe of unknown metal that displayed visions of star systems. Back in Europe, a fragile schism was forming. A clandestine network of scholars, monks, and explorers began secretly gathering accounts and artifacts from alien encounters. These celestial brotherhoods operated under the threat of excommunication and death but were driven by an insatiable hunger for truth. Some attempted to decipher the patterns of alien movement, others recorded physical properties of strange artifacts, metallic orbs impervious to fire, scrolls that glowed with unknown writing, and stones that emitted a soft hum when held. The implications were profound. If these beings were not demonic, then what were they? Created by God? Were humans not the center of creation after all? By 1280, isolated pockets of society began undergoing intellectual tremors. In Salerno, where Arab and Latin knowledge intermingled, a circle of proto-scientists proposed that Earth was not unique. They argued that these beings might come from a sphere beyond the firmament, a radical notion that challenged geocentric cosmology and Aristotelian physics. The response was brutal. The Inquisition expanded its jurisdiction. In 1282, the trial of the stars saw dozens of scholars executed for speculating on non-human intelligence. The papacy declared a new edict: the skies belong to the Lord, and no creature may challenge his sovereignty. Yet the alien visitors did not retreat. Their next move was more direct. On the morning of April 9, 1284, a formation of 6 craft hovered for 3 hours above Constantinople. Witnessed by thousands, including the Emperor Andronikos II himself, the spectacle disrupted trade, halted religious services, and sparked rioting. One vessel descended low enough to trigger chaos in the hippodrome, where people fell prostrate, praying for deliverance. The event was so widely documented that even skeptical scribes in France and England reluctantly acknowledged it. The Orthodox Church, unlike its Roman counterpart, responded with theological ambiguity. Patriarch Joseph II suggested the visitors could be angelic watchers, referencing the apocryphal Book of Enoch. He called for further observation rather than condemnation. This marked a subtle shift. Unlike the West's repression, Byzantium entertained theological inquiry. By the end of the 1280s, 3 distinct camps had emerged: the suppressive West, the inquisitive East, and the observant Mongol sphere. Each interpreted the alien presence through its own cultural, religious, and political lenses. While many still viewed the visitors with fear, an undercurrent of revolutionary thought was beginning to stir, a movement that would eventually upend centuries of dogma. In isolated mountain monasteries, secret scrolls were copied detailing alien messages. In desert oases, mystics meditated under the stars hoping to establish mental contact. In forgotten fortresses, blacksmiths experimented with alien alloys, forging blades that shimmered unnaturally in the moonlight. A silent war of ideas had begun. Not between nations, but between worldviews. Were these beings divine, infernal, or something else entirely? And what did they want? The answers would not come easily. But one thing was now certain: the Middle Ages would never be the same. As alien technology began to disseminate, slowly, selectively, and often incompletely, it catalyzed an unprecedented transformation across the medieval world. But progress, especially in the age of dogma and empire, rarely comes without peril. The early decades of alien contact, marked by awe and reverence, gradually gave way to division, suspicion, and a dangerous arms race fueled not only by earthly ambition but by misinterpretation of alien intent. At the heart of this growing conflict was the competition for access. The initial landing site in the Frankish heartlands quickly transformed into a center of pilgrimage and political power. Though the extraterrestrials attempted neutrality, their geographic proximity to Christian Europe meant that Catholic kingdoms, particularly the Holy Roman Empire and France, had disproportionate access to alien knowledge. This imbalance sowed resentment in the Byzantine East, the Islamic caliphates, and the growing Mongol domains of Asia. Within decades, alien artifacts became currency in diplomacy and warfare. Holographic codices, devices that could project light-based writing in multiple tongues, revolutionized learning among monasteries and royal courts alike. But the true accelerant to geopolitical chaos came when alien materials were discovered to possess transformative military potential. Strange alloys, harder than any earthly metal yet light as cloth, were forged into armor. Directed energy tools, perhaps designed for peaceful engineering tasks, were adapted by early earthly engineers into primitive weapons. Where once swords clashed, now beams of burning light seared plate and flesh alike. The Knights of the Stellar Cross, a secretive order born within the Vatican and tasked with managing theological integration of the aliens, became militarized, forming elite corps trained in the use of alien weaponry. Their influence spread rapidly, and they answered not to kings, but to the papacy itself. They saw themselves as divine intermediaries, Earth's defenders against both heresy and any further alien interference. Their enemies, however, saw them as dangerous zealots. The Islamic world, initially skeptical of the alien arrivals, began its own technological renaissance. Drawing from ancient Greek, Persian, and now extraterrestrial texts, scholars in Baghdad and Cairo reverse-engineered alien devices. The House of Wisdom, already a beacon of knowledge, was reborn as the House of Stars. There, Islamic astronomers, mathematicians, and alchemists blended earthly and alien knowledge into something truly revolutionary, the early seeds of rocket propulsion and electromagnetic theory. Alien sky maps helped refine Islamic cosmology, creating a strange yet elegant fusion between Quranic teachings and stellar cartography. But as scientific enlightenment blossomed, so did conflict. In 1251, during the Second Papal War of the Stars, an incident known as the Siege of Marburg marked the first time two human armies deployed alien-derived weaponry against one another. The battle was catastrophic. Not only did thousands perish, but the use of gravitational destabilizers, improperly activated by untrained crusaders, caused a localized tectonic shift, swallowing the fortress and surrounding lands. Survivors claimed the sky itself wept blood as magnetic storms raged for days. The alien observers, until then detached, intervened, deploying containment protocols and forbidding further weaponization. Yet their warning came too late. Earth's leaders had already tasted power beyond comprehension. From the Mongol steppe to the cathedrals of Paris, alien relics were no longer sacred, they were strategic. Even the alien emissaries themselves became pawns. Some were assassinated by zealots. Others were captured and tortured for knowledge. Alien outposts were pillaged, their vaults emptied. Alien technology, once a gift, now became a curse. Amid this chaos, philosophical and theological divides deepened. In Europe, debates raged in universities and cathedrals. Was alien technology divine or demonic? Were the extraterrestrials fallen angels, or saints from distant heavens? Heretical sects emerged, worshipping the aliens as gods, while others, like the Infernists of Lombardy, declared them devils, agents of the Antichrist come to test man's faith. In the Islamic world, theological councils issued fatwas both condemning and embracing alien contact. Sufi mystics began to weave alien cosmology into their spiritual visions, claiming they had long dreamt of star beings. Meanwhile, in China, the Song dynasty attempted cautious engagement. Using alien star charts and metallurgical techniques, they developed early prototypes of long-range gliders. Machines that hinted at flight centuries ahead of time. The Mongols, under a future Genghis Khan now advised by alien captives, began forging a new kind of empire, one that sought not only earthly conquest, but celestial expansion. By 1285, the world was irrevocably altered. Ancient city-states became techno-theocracies. Wars were fought not just for land or faith, but for access to alien archives. The Crusades no longer marched solely toward Jerusalem, but toward celestial keys, rumored vaults containing galactic secrets hidden in Earth's crust. The alien presence, meant to guide humanity into a new age, had instead splintered it. Earth teetered on the brink of apocalypse, not by alien invasion, but by human hands wielding tools they scarcely understood. And far above, in silent orbit, alien motherships observed, uncertain whether to intervene further or abandon the experiment entirely. The Middle Ages had ended not in plague or reformation, but in fire and plasma, heralding not the Renaissance, but the Star Wars of Earth's fractured future. As the aliens slowly built trust among isolated rulers and scholars, their presence began subtly reshaping the intellectual and technological landscape of medieval Europe. While many still feared them as angels or demons, there were those, curious monks, alchemists, and polymaths, who saw in the alien visitors a wellspring of divine insight. The monasteries of Ireland, the observatories of Persia, and even the courts of Moorish Spain began recording stories of shining ones with knowledge that could predict eclipses, control disease, and manipulate unseen forces. One of the most profound impacts was the accelerated development of astronomy and medicine. With guidance from the extraterrestrial visitors, medieval astronomers began to correct Ptolemaic errors centuries ahead of time. Arabic scholars like al-Biruni and European thinkers such as Gerbert of Aurillac, later Pope Sylvester II, documented strange but precise star maps and mathematical systems that hinted at a heliocentric model long before Copernicus. Star charts previously passed off as astrological curiosities were now taken seriously as empirical data. In medicine, alien influence introduced antiseptics, surgical techniques, and a crude understanding of germ theory. While the wider population remained tied to superstition and divine explanations, a silent revolution began in select enclaves. Monks in alien-friendly monasteries started using copper instruments and boiling cloth for surgeries. leech therapy was slowly abandoned in favor of alien-prescribed herbal compounds and sanitation methods. Plague outbreaks, while still devastating, began to be more contained in regions open to alien aid. This uneven spread of alien-assisted knowledge created geopolitical ripples. City-states or kingdoms that allied with the visitors, such as Venice, Cordoba, or Novgorod, saw unprecedented advancements in infrastructure. Venetian engineers began experimenting with reinforced bridges and even primitive steam power, inspired by alien diagrams. Trade routes were fortified with strange, lightweight metals, and roads constructed using techniques that wouldn't re-emerge until the Industrial Revolution. But this sudden leap forward came at a cost. Alien technology, misunderstood by humans, was often misused. A weapon designed for mining became a siege device in the hands of a warlord. A tool for atmospheric cleansing caused respiratory illness when improperly activated by priests seeking divine rain. In some places, the alien devices were worshipped as relics, used in rituals without understanding their function, leading to malfunctions and tragedy. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church faced an existential crisis. Alien revelations directly contradicted Scripture. Were these visitors truly angels? Or was this a new temptation, a heresy in disguise? A schism began forming between traditionalists and those who saw alien wisdom as divine providence. The Inquisition, already suspicious of witchcraft, expanded its authority to root out alien corruption. Torture chambers now held scientists and monks accused of consorting with non-human intelligences. In Islamic regions, the reception was more varied. Some scholars interpreted the aliens as jinn or divine messengers, while others, especially within the rationalist Mutazilite tradition, saw them as natural beings created by Allah on other worlds. The result was a brief golden age of hybrid alien-human philosophy and science in places like Baghdad and Cairo. The tension between rapid technological advancement and theological rigidity deepened. Would humanity embrace these beings as mentors, or resist them as existential threats to the sacred order? The next phase of contact would test whether medieval civilization could evolve, or fracture entirely. As the 13th century dawned, whispers of celestial visitation began to spread across continents. In our alternate timeline, the alien visitors, designated by later historians as the Seraphim, established more overt contact with key centers of human civilization. Initially presenting themselves as luminous beings of knowledge, their appearance aligned with religious iconography prevalent across Christian Europe and the Islamic world. This alignment was no coincidence. The Seraphim had studied humanity's cultural and theological systems to ensure their presence would be interpreted with reverence rather than hostility. One of the first documented alliances took place in Baghdad, a flourishing center of learning in the Abbasid Caliphate. There, the House of Wisdom became a bridge between alien and human intellect. The Seraphim shared advanced mathematical and astronomical concepts far beyond the knowledge of the time. Ideas that would take centuries for Earth to rediscover in our actual history. Geometric calculations, theoretical optics, and even early formulations of quantum interaction were introduced in coded forms that could be absorbed over generations. European monarchs, however, reacted differently. In the Papal States, Pope Innocent III called for a theological inquiry into these beings. Were they angels, or demons in disguise? The Church was torn. Some theologians saw the Seraphim as divine messengers affirming Christian supremacy, others suspected heresy and urged caution. This divide led to political schisms. France, under King Philip II, welcomed the Seraphim to Paris. Notre Dame was subtly redesigned with alien input, becoming a cathedral not only of worship but also of encoded technology. In the East, the Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan encountered the Seraphim during their campaigns. Fascinated by their flying vessels and potent tools of destruction, the Khan sought their alliance. The Seraphim declined to interfere militarily but gifted the Mongols a series of devices capable of environmental manipulation, rudimentary terraforming tools that increased crop yields and stabilized local climates. This strengthened the empire, extending its lifespan and influence. Throughout Africa, contact was more spiritual than political. In Mali, oral traditions began incorporating tales of sky gods who walk as men but do not sleep. Timbuktu became a convergence point of human-alien philosophy. The seraphim introduced renewable energy sources, primarily solar harmonic collectors disguised as obsidian altars. Knowledge spread discreetly, without disrupting social cohesion. Despite their non-violent approach, the presence of the seraphim initiated an intellectual awakening. Feudal Europe saw an accelerated collapse of the medieval order. Guilds of star scholars emerged, challenging the supremacy of the church and monarchy alike. These groups developed rudimentary versions of electricity, rudimentary communication devices, and mechanized tools, all derived from fragmented alien instruction. Yet tensions escalated. Not all human factions viewed the seraphim with reverence. The Teutonic Knights, driven by a vision of purifying Christendom, declared a holy crusade against the so-called blasphemous star beings. Armed with early gunpowder weapons and a doctrine of divine vengeance, they launched assaults on alien sanctuaries in Poland and Hungary. In response, the seraphim did not retaliate with violence. Instead, they withdrew from those regions, erecting temporal cloaks, zones of distorted time where centuries passed in seconds, erasing traces of their presence. This cautious approach signaled the seraphim's long-term strategy to influence without ruling, to seed knowledge without imposing doctrine. Their philosophy resembled a galactic prime directive, one of careful nudging rather than conquest. But even this gentle interference caused profound changes. By the mid-14th century, the world was different. The Black Death, which ravaged Europe in our timeline, was significantly mitigated. The seraphim had subtly introduced hygienic protocols and bacterial theory to physicians in Florence and Cordoba. Though misunderstood, these ideas were implemented with enough efficacy to reduce mortality. The Renaissance began a century early. Leonardo da Vinci's alternate equivalent, emerging in the court of the French king, constructed working flying machines and analytical engines. Libraries stored not scrolls but crystalline data cores, unreadable to most, but revered as divine artifacts. Still, the seraphim were not omnipotent. Their limited presence could not unify all of humanity. Rival factions, jealous of the alien favor shown to certain kingdoms, began weaponizing salvaged alien tech. Skirmishes between proto-industrial city-states broke out, primitive steam engines clashed on battlefields lit by alien luminance. The world teetered on the brink of a premature global war. Sensing this, the seraphim made a fateful decision. In 1399, they announced their final departure. They delivered a global communique, encoded into light patterns visible across the night sky, urging humanity to choose knowledge over destruction, unity over conquest. Their ships rose one last time, disappearing beyond the atmosphere, leaving behind only relics, myths, and the seeds of accelerated civilization. The Earth they left behind was no longer medieval. It was a hybrid, part feudal, part enlightened, and wholly altered by the touch of the stars.